And now, a show with inappropriate language, the Powell Movement.
Welcome to the Powell Movement. I'm your host, Mike Powell, and this week my guest is a dude that does a little of everything. Action sports personality Chris Coté. You may know Chris from his brief pro surf career, but the real reason you would know him is from his 13 years behind the desk at Transworld Surf and a plethora of events that he broadcasts for. Chris is a print guy who went on to pioneer things in the digital space when no one else was doing it. He also partied harder than anyone else. But before I get into his partying and his life and all the great things he's done in his career, I'm going to share another crazy story from the life of Powell. My wife Ange hates it when I bring her up on the podcast. The last time I did it, we were running errands on 420 and ended up in the middle of a drive-by shooting with her driving. That was fucking crazy. But I think yesterday may have taken the cake for how badass my wife is. Yesterday, she was walking our French Bulldog Chief while I was sitting here editing the podcast. At this point, I am totally sick of both my and Chris Coté's voices when I get a call. My wife is frantic. She's crying and telling me that our dog was attacked by a pit bull and I need to get there right away. I haul ass out of the house, pull up to the scene, and plenty of neighbors are on hand. My dog looked okay, a couple of cuts, but he was fine, and my wife was covered in dirt, grass stains, and a little bit of blood on her hand. She starts explaining what happened. She was walking the dog when an 80-pound pit bull broke out of a house and started sprinting right at her. She had tried to shield our dog Chief from the pit bull, but the pit went straight for Chief's neck. He locked jaws on Chief's neck and flailed him around, and that's when Ange went into full badass mode. She dove to the ground to try to separate the dogs. Then she started kicking and punching the pit bull while screaming. A neighbor rushed out to help, and when he did, Ange had already separated the two dogs, and the neighbor used a belt to restrain the pit bull, and my wife and dog are okay, just shaken. In the aftermath, we find out that that pit bull mauled another dog less than a week before, and the whole neighborhood is freaking out. Like the drive-by, everyone lived. Well, the pit bull might not. And my wife, well, she will have yet another thing on her mind when it's her turn to walk the dog. That's enough with Powell drama. Before I get into the show, I want to ask you to subscribe to my podcast wherever you listen to me and follow me on Instagram at The Powell Movement. Finally, I need to thank my great sponsors who I hope you all support. They are Evo, Stanley, Spy Optic, and the 10 Barrel Brewery. Now, let's talk with Chris Coté. I guess I will start this one out talking with some unfortunate things that you have to deal with in life, and I would say that's internet hate. I saw a post recently where someone said they wanted to have you executed in front of your family, and what was that post all about?
That was from a message board. I don't remember what website or whatever, but it was just about surf commentary. You could kind of tell it's just amateur troll. And, I think comments like that, I don't take it seriously for what it actually says. But I've always said that I'm glad these things are directed to me and not to someone that would be really affected by it. But I also feel like by reporting it to not only the publishers of that particular website, but to, show the people that follow me on Twitter, Instagram, or whatever, like, hey, this stuff's happening, and I just want people to be conscious of what they say and how it can affect people. I didn't take it personally. It didn't hurt me in any way, but I thought, okay, this is a teachable, learnable moment that I can use.
Do you almost laugh when that comes up in your feed? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. It's funny because really, if you're that affected by somebody's surf commentary, then you've got a problem. I just think it's some kid being a armchair troll, expecting to be rewarded for it. Like, oh, I can say the craziest thing on here. Look, I'm all for fun, even hateful, just terrible comments. But when it turns into something that is a violent thing, a sexist thing, a racist thing, a homophobic or takedown of a broader spectrum of people, comments like that don't have a place in what we do.
Transworld Surf, when that launched, I believe you were one of the first big active message boards in action sports, and you were the face and personality of that brand. You actually called out trolls at that point, like literally called their house.
Yeah. I want to say we were probably the first modern troll-friendly message board, pretty unrelegated. You know, we would go on there and make sure that there wasn't crazy stuff being said. And I trolled myself, the reverse troll. I threw out the bait all day long because I used all those comments and the letters and stuff. I used those to my advantage in the magazine. But again, it would just get to a certain point where some people would just start getting so personal and so vicious that you had to go, okay, got to stop rewarding this behavior. And I do remember calling a few people, and every time, and I know it's the same case now, every and any time somebody is a troll and they specifically target you or a specific person over and over, they just want attention, and they're actually bigger fans than the people who are silent. I call these guys, I go, hey, what's up? This is Chris from Transworld. How are you? Are you okay? You seem angry.
You said you wanted to rip my throat out and skull fuck me.
Yeah, exactly. And it would be the same answer every time. Oh, dude, I'm a huge fan. I can't believe you're calling. I guarantee if LeBron James, Kelly Slater, Tony Hawk, Mike Trout, anybody from any sport, Tom Cruise, freaking Will Smith, Migos, whoever, if any of those people literally called one of their most vicious trolls, I guarantee you that troll would be like, whoa, big fan. This is crazy. Sorry, I was just trying to get attention.
That was really an eclectic crew of people that you threw out there. Tom Cruise, Migos, LeBron, Will Smith.
That's not to say that I'm fans of any of those people. They just were the names of people that are hated by mass audiences.
How can people hate Will Smith? Summertime is still like a classic anthem.
I would like to be friends with Will Smith, personally.
I can't say that I wouldn't. I'm sure he has some fun stuff going on at his pad.
No doubt.
I started this interview all talking about hate, but hopefully we'll go to a place of love. You were born and raised in the San Diego area?
Yeah, born in San Diego, raised in Lucadia, California. I live across the street from my mom, where I was raised. My brother lives on the street. My sister used to live across the street as well. We pretty much got like the whole crew back together from where we all grew up. So it's pretty idyllic, 2 blocks from the beach. So life is good.
Did you have a super tight family growing up?
There's divorces and all that kind of stuff.
How old were you for that?
I was very young for one of them. I was a teenager for the second one.
Oh, man, you had 2.
Yeah. So, I kind of saw it all. But through all of it, we bonded in all different kinds of ways. Stepbrothers and stepsisters and new step-parents. And for all the drama, there was equal joy, because you got to experience so many different types of people. And now, especially being an adult and looking back, I'm like, wow, like my stepmom taught me this. My stepdad taught me this. My dad taught me this. So it's almost like I see it as a fortunate thing. And since I got divorced myself, I try to tell my kids that same thing. I know it's hard sometimes, but we are so lucky because now we have these other people in our lives that love us. So now there's double the love for you guys, because now there's 4 of us. You know what I mean? It's like, try to instill that in them early. My situation was different. Like, my kids never heard or saw any fighting, or there's never been negativity between myself and my ex-wife for them.
But you had that shit growing up?
Yeah, growing up, there was definitely some wild times.
Drugs, alcohol, that kind of shit in the house?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So you saw a lot of shit at an early age?
We saw some shit.
Did you have rules, or was like just be home at dark and they didn't really care what you were doing, or what was going on?
I had rules. It was a pretty interesting dichotomy. Bedtime was strict all the way up until when I was 15 years old. We got busted for doing stupid things. We grew up 2 blocks from the beach. We didn't grow up with money or anything like that, but we grew up with a lot of love in the house. And while there was partying and relationship drama and stuff like that, we never felt like that was affecting us in terms of being parented. It was kind of 2 different worlds. But yeah, we definitely saw some things that kids probably shouldn't see, but at the same time, I think we learned a lot from it.
Were you a mischievous kid at that same time? You said you got in trouble for some shit. I mean, were you guys like always looking to have fun, and usually that involved bending the law?
Yeah, I mean, just growing up, my friends and I, we were punks for sure. I tended to get away with most things because I kind of have this Eddie Haskell quality, but we just did the usual kind of like bad kid stuff.
Throw rocks at cars and stuff like that?
Yeah, fun stuff. Fighting each other, slight vandalism.
Smoking cigarettes at the mall?
Yeah, basic kid stuff.
Skating or surfing first for you?
Skating probably came first in terms of doing it more seriously. I bodyboarded at a young age, skimboarded a lot, but mostly skated.
Do people make fun of bodyboarders?
They used to, yeah. Kind of side note, these days bodyboarders are the most true punk rock surfers there are because they don't give a fuck. And they surf waves that surfers wouldn't even be able to surf. And they don't need to do it in front of cameras and all that. And I'm guilty of having fun at the expense of bodyboarders, longboarders, etc. through Transworld.
You've made a career of it.
Yeah, and I've obviously completely changed my tune on that. I'm in the Ride Everything movement 100%. But bodyboarding and skateboarding around the neighborhood, and this was in the late 80s going into the 90s. So it was a really fun and exciting time for skating because it was still a little bit of an outlaw thing. And Bones Brigade and Powell videos and all that stuff was what we grew up on. And then as we started to be aware of surfing and surfing more, we would ride our skateboards down the street and call it like, I'm Aki. And then we'd try to skate like Aki. We would always fight over who got to be Aki when we were skating down the street. It all kind of blended in. So I'm pretty much half and half. That's what I do every day. I either skate or surf. That's kind of what I did back then too.
And back then, I wouldn't think there's many skate parks around you, although you were in California, so you have more than anybody else in the early 90s. But street skating ramps, what are you skating back then?
We were fortunate enough to grow up skating Del Mar Skate Ranch, and that was really the epicenter of
everything.
Yeah, where it was all going down. That's like early Bones Brigade days, Tony Hawk, Caballero, that whole crew, like they were all there. And we didn't really know who the skating pros or stars were at the time. We were just dropped off by our parents early in the morning and picked up late in the afternoon. And then from there, we found ramps and all that stuff, but mostly through teenage years, junior high and all that. It was in the streets and just around town.
In terms of sports, did you play any team sports or was it strictly skating and surfing?
Little League baseball. I wrestled for a little bit in high school, but I was so little that there was never anyone for me to wrestle, so it was kind of pointless.
The 95-pound class?
Yeah, I wasn't even in that class.
Whoa, so you were really teeny in high school?
I was a tiny kid.
And were you a smart ass too? Were you the guy starting stuff and your friends would finish it?
I definitely was a smart ass, but not to the point of starting stuff like that. But none of us drank or anything. We were all straight edge all through junior high and high school. And so we got our kicks by going to parties with video cameras and filming butt making and making fun of drunk people and doing antics. And that was how we got our kicks. But it wasn't like malicious. It was more self-deprecating kind of stuff.
Just being idiot kids.
Exactly.
And how about music? I mean, that's a big part of your life as well. When do you start playing?
I had always been into music just from my parents growing up on steady diet of classic rock and all that. But then junior high school, started getting really into finding my own music and exploring, I guess, an eclectic mix of stuff. Still always listening to classic rock, but then getting really into indie rock and all kinds of random music, African music.
Are you playing music at the time too?
I started playing guitar and drums in high school, yeah.
Self-taught or did you take lessons?
I just listened to a bunch of Sonic Youth and I thought, okay, I'm going to try it. I can do this.
So no lessons ever?
No lessons ever. Yeah, just playing what I thought sounds cool. I mean, I couldn't tell you the name of a chord, but I've been playing music for 20 plus years. Not well. I always say I can play every instrument, but I can't play any of them well. I can play what I think sounds cool, and to other people, it might just sound horrible.
Well, I think that's a function of your whole life as you're always doing 80 things and not focusing on one. And with music, it's probably like every instrument and not just focusing on guitar.
Right. Jack of all trades.
Yes. Did you sing back then? Were you confident enough to sing in front of people when you were 85 pounds?
Yeah, I sang in high school, Battle of the Bands. We had a band called Red Circle, actually with the same drummer that's in Cut You Up still to this day. We did Battle of the Bands, sang a song called Uncle Freddie that was kind of a tribute to the Jerky Boys prank call tapes.
What year did you graduate high school?
94.
And then do you think about going to college when you graduate high school, or what is the track for you?
I was kind of a late bloomer when it came to sponsorship and surfing and all that. So after high school, I started surfing more contests and started to kind of come into my own there. So I got sponsored. I traveled internationally.
So is there a contest series that you do well at, and then someone comes up and they're like, hey man, we want to give you a board, and it kind of evolves from that?
Yeah, I was filming for Terror Devils videos, the Terror Devils trilogy back then, filming with friends, putting video parts out however we could back then. Then I just did this local contest in Carlsbad. It was just this surf shop event, and a guy named Jeff Moore, who worked at Ezekiel, randomly. I had other sponsors coming up, but just friends of friends kind of thing.
Just getting flowed stuff?
Yeah. So this guy, Jeff Moore, a saint, comes up to me after the contest and he goes, dude, you're ripping. We want to sponsor you for Ezekiel. And I go, whoa, okay. And then I started getting in magazine ads, traveling, and basically getting paid to surf. Around this time, I was going to a community college and just blowing it super hard.
Yeah, but you got pictures in a surf magazine. Your career's set at that point.
Yeah. And from there, as I was getting pictures and being invited on trips, I always felt self-conscious, like I wasn't good enough of a surfer to be getting this. So I would volunteer other services. Hey, I'll go on this trip, but I'll also write the article, or I can do certain jobs. I can go to the amateur event, set up the tent. And I was down for whatever.
You wanted to earn your keep.
Exactly. Because I was always self-conscious. I could surf okay. I could get photos. I could do okay in heats, but it wasn't until I went to Hawaii for the first time that I really realized I was not going to be a pro surfer, because you got to be able to surf in Hawaii, and it was really scary.
It was like you were Rick Kane, but you weren't able to actually pull it through when you got to the North Shore?
Yeah, I was a reverse Rick Kane, because I was already getting paid and doing well, and then I went to the North Shore and I go, okay, I need to get a job.
You're a personality guy, and a lot of people like you. I don't think you're partying hard that much at that point. So for people to want to say, hey, you can manage our team or do some things that really require responsibility, you're able to get yourself jobs doing that. And who do you end up working for in the surf world?
So after Ezekiel, I went and rode for Billabong, and then...
Did anybody ever pay you?
Yeah, I got paid. At the peak, I was getting paid $2,500 a month or something from a couple of different sponsors, and travel incentives and budgets and all that stuff. So it was cool. I bought a Jetta from contest winnings one time.
So you're a legit pro.
I was a pro. Oh yeah. A C+ pro. I was pro.
Okay.
So I kind of made the transition when Hurley split off Billabong. They invited me to come over there. So I was with Hurley, and through them, this was kind of when I was thinking, okay, I should probably start figuring out a plan B, because I can't fool everybody for very much longer. So I started to do team manager stuff for Hurley, Arnett, Reef, back and forth. And I was doing some magazine articles for Wave Action Magazine and Surfer Magazine. So kind of planting the seeds of what I do now, which is just spreading out across my skill set and trying to use everything I have to build one thing. So yeah, that was through kind of the late teens into my 20s that I was doing different kind of odd jobs in the surf industry.
And are you still playing music throughout that whole time?
Yeah, I'm still playing music through that whole time.
Cut You Up form around then?
Cut You Up formed around then. This was my early 20s. I had never drank or smoked pot or anything, but when I turned 21, the day of my birthday, is the day I had my first sip of alcohol, and I really liked it. And quickly from there, I got into weed and everything else. So my early 20s kind of became like a little lost period. I just started working at a surf shop and smoking as much pot as possible for a year or something. And then I got a job working for Blink 182 from my friend Rick DeVoe, who had got me a bunch of other industry type jobs.
When you get a job with them, what is that? Are you going on tour with them? And I think you were a drum tech or something like that.
Yeah, I worked for Taylor Steele. I would set up the screen and set up banners and stuff for his Focus tour, and started to figure out how these tours worked with the bands a little bit. And then when I started with Blink, I was a drum tech, kind of drum tech roadie. And he did that for a couple of years. And it was through that where I would always give him shit about their band being awful and try to get them to listen to good music. They'd always say, well, let's hear your band. So finally I just made up a band, Cut You Up. It was a fake band for a while, but then we got dared to open for Blink at an arena in San Diego. And so we formed a real band. And that was our third show, was open for Blink at an arena show.
With 20,000 people there?
There was a lot of people there, yeah.
That's got to be insane. When you go on the road with them, are you on tour for like 2 months? It's like a gig and you're in and out?
Yeah.
Being on the road with a huge band, one of the biggest bands in the world, I think, at that time. What can you make for being on the road for 60 days being a drum tech?
It's cool because you make per diem, you make a weekly salary, whatever it was, $700 or $1,000 or something a week. But you don't have to pay for any food. There's food everywhere. I don't even know if I was paying rent at this time. I didn't have kids or anything. I just was out there. And so you don't really spend any money. You know, all your drinks are free. All your food is free. So you just kind of pocket your per diem. You pocket what you're making a week. And so you come home and you're like, oh, cool. I have $4,000. Let's go.
And are you partying a shitload on tour as well, or is it focused on the work?
Oh, yeah, I'm partying. The work was minimal. Fucking roadie work. Loading speakers and setting up and taking down drums. This was before Travis Barker was doing his spinning fire drum set show. So it was just a basic drum set that I would set up and take down every night and then party all night and then do it all again.
Now it is time for me to take a quick sponsor break. My first sponsor is Evo. And if you haven't been to Evo stores in Seattle, Portland, Denver, or Whistler, or visited their website, evo.com, you are missing out on the best deals in action sports and beyond. Evo has something for everyone in the family, and they always have a great sale going on. They carry all the best brands in bike, surf, skate, wake, ski, and snowboard, and have all the clothing and outerwear you'll need for your adventure, or just to look great when it's time to head back to school or the bar. Right now, you can find some great end-of-season deals on bikes and surfboards, and check out all the new ski and snowboarding gear that's hitting the floor daily over at Evo. Evo offers free shipping on orders over $50, a low price guarantee, and a no-hassle return policy. Please support the show by buying everything you need from Evo. My next sponsor is Stanley, another iconic Seattle brand that has been ahead of the curve since 1913. While we all know Stanley for creating that iconic green bottle that kept your grandpa's coffee hot all day long, they still do that and a lot more these days. They still are all about adventure. They still are all about keeping your beverages hotter or colder than any other product ever created. And they have always been the right choice when it comes to the planet. If you are still using single-use plastics for your beverages, it's time to make a change for the environment. And now I'm making it easier than ever to do that. You can save 30% on all Stanley products when you head on over to stanley-pmi.com, buy some stuff. When you check out, enter the code POWEL, the number 30, that's all one word, and you're done. I should also mention that when you buy from Stanley, you are also supporting cool projects like this podcast and the new movie from Matchsticks Productions. Those are my sponsors. Now we will jump back into the podcast. So when you get Cut You Up put together, it's kind of a joke, like you say, and you play a big show. I don't know how long it is, but the band pretty much is like, hey, you're going to come on tour with us. How does that invitation to actually go play on the road with them happen?
I became really good friends with the guys in Blink. And so they had this idea through their company, Atticus, as kind of a marketing thing for Atticus, is to bring this band out and wreak havoc, because they weren't going to do it. They were a big band at the time, and none of those guys really partied or did anything interesting off the stage. For us, it was amazing because we just got carte blanche to do whatever we want. So again, it was kind of like a dare in the sense of how we got to open for them at that arena show, but it was a broader dare, and it came from this idea of, okay, let's make this rock dream come true for this baby band. And it was because we were friends with them, but that wasn't really the point. The point was it showed what it was like, almost like a microcosm of a band's career, right? You start in the bottom, end up at the top. We just happened to do that in the span of 2 months and then documented the whole thing. It resonated. I mean, it's still a cult classic to this day.
If people haven't seen it, it's Riding in Vans with Boys, I believe is the title. And it's
Yes.
amazing. You are a train wreck.
Oh, yeah.
It is amazing to watch throughout the whole thing. You're like the annoying guy on the road who has nothing to do. But when I say annoying, I mean it in a funny, endearing way where people want to get pissed, but then are probably also laughing at what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like we annoyed our way into their hearts.
Yeah. Are you drunk 24/7? Because it seems like it from the video. You're on the road for 60 days. How many days of those are you drinking?
61 days of those days.
And does it start when you wake up and just go all day long?
Well, yeah, it starts when you wake up because your first order of business is, where are we getting booze today? How are we going to get drunk? Where are we going to drink? Where are we going to play? What kind of antics are we going to get into today? It was a serious dream fantasy camp for a 25-year-old, however old I was, because you were in a different city every day. So you weren't burning a bridge and going to face the consequences the next day because you were already gone in the next town.
Yeah.
If we would have been able to do that for 4 or 5 more years, we would have definitely either be dead or there would be lore surrounding that band. The best of them, the most self-destructive bands. That's what it would have become. But thankfully, for our health, safety, and sanity, it fizzled relatively quick.
It looks like you guys are just drinking a shit ton, but they don't show any of the other stuff. Are there drugs involved too, or is it just like a healthy supply of booze?
There's some drugs.
Not that you're seeking out, just people that are giving you late night?
Oh, no, we were seeking it out.
Okay.
But that stuff wasn't captured. And then kind of when we got back from that tour is when heavier drugs started coming into the picture. And that is addressed by Brandon Parkhurst, who plays guitar. And he's been sober for a long time now. And he has a group that he works with called Rock to Recovery. So the band is 75% sober now, myself included.
Does the other guy call you pussies?
Yeah. Apparently doesn't have a problem with it.
And then, so you've got the band and you have the movie. Some of the things that kind of stood out to me, a low light, I would say, there was one big show where you're going to play in front of a shitload of people and you were nowhere to be found. Everyone you would think would be pissed off at you for a long time, but they stayed mad at you for about 8 minutes. What happens there? And do you feel like you missed a huge opportunity for the band?
At the time, yes. At the time, it was heartbreaking for sure. But in looking back, it was like a side stage, like upstate New York or something. It wasn't like it was going to be a show that's going to make or break us. But it was perfect that it happened for the arc of the story. It's almost like you couldn't have scripted it better because we had been playing all these crappy shows and finally we're on a real stage. There's a huge crowd there and we just blow it. Half the band misses it. That was as close as we came to fist fighting on the tour, for sure. And that was totally my fault.
What's your highlight and low light if you have to pick them out from that tour?
The highlight was the bond that you form traveling with your best friends in a van, the ups and downs. And the whole thing felt like a carnival ride. It was constant comedy and drama and interesting and just the best time ever. The low light was a year or so after kind of just going, wait a second, what happened? You know, you have all this momentum and you just kind of squander it. So the low light would be the wasting of the opportunity, which again, was I destined to be in some kind of big band? Probably not, for my health and for my life. But, you know, it's kind of that what if question.
The stars aligned, you had the opportunity and you guys didn't seize it when you got home?
We tried, but partying came first.
Understandable. When you're partying a lot on the road, it's not like you're going to come home and be like, all right, now let's focus on music.
Let's get serious, you guys.
Yeah, really. You're at home for a year or two. I think you're working at the surf shop, and that's when you get a call from Transworld.
Yeah, got the call in late 1998. You know, I'd been a huge skate fan skateboarder, surfer. I had worked at all the magazines before, just as freelance writer or whatever. So got the call from the group starting Transworld to be a consultant freelance writer, and was elated because I got to work with the magazine with the name Transworld on it, which for me was a huge deal.
They own skate and snow.
Yeah, and I felt honored. I felt I had a duty to make this thing as good as it could possibly be, to make it different, to do something that, hadn't really been done in surf. It had been attempted for sure, but we emulated more of the skate ethos, Big Brother style, kind of what we were into at the time. CKY videos, Big Brother.
You brought a sense of humor to it where everybody was stale and kind of the old guard, it seemed like magazine-wise.
Yeah, and, using sequences, highlighting high-performance surfing, younger surfers. We didn't really care too much about what was happening on the championship tour. It was about what was happening at the local beach break in Australia, in Newport, on the East Coast. Who was doing the best airs, who was just ripping, who did not care, who had a good personality. That was kind of our approach to it. And then, of course, having fun was job one. And that was not just what appeared in the magazine, but that was also what was happening at the office.
So you guys have a ramp and a fridge full of beer, and you guys are...
Oh, yeah. We probably worked 20 to 30 minutes a day. The rest of the day, we just screwed around.
And then deadline time would come and you guys would pull all-nighters?
Exactly. Were you there?
No, I just know how that game works. You guys were doing some really innovative things in the digital space, I feel like, at that time, and they were kind of pioneered by you. Coté's Cube at that point is the first real webisode series per se of just an interview-based, hey, I'm going to shoot the shit with this pro surfer, you're going to get to know him a little bit better. Were you guys the first on that forefront?
We were definitely early to that game. You had mentioned earlier the message boards, a lot of the things that we were doing at the time. This was the start of the internet era. I mean, this was 1999, 2000. Let's say you went on a trip, and I remember when we first got these digital cameras, they were just horrible and the files were tiny and they were cumbersome. It took forever to load, but it was like, okay, well, whatever you don't use in the magazine, we got to put on the internet. And everyone go, oh God, we got to put something on the internet. That sucks. Nobody's going to see it. Nobody cares. And slowly that started to change. And I think we reacted and adapted really quickly to that. We became the leaders on surf media on the internet for sure. And things like Coté Cube, that was early vlogging. And I never really thought about it at the time as anything revolutionary. But when I look back, it makes me very proud to be kind of one of those first bloggers, a weird word because it's kind of different, but just one of the first in that space to just do those simple 10-minute sit-down interview series that nobody was really doing at the time.
It was new content and it kind of paved the way for a lot of things. I feel like Transworld sponsoring the US Open and having you doing the stream and being the host on the internet was another pioneering thing. There probably weren't too many internet hosts before then because streaming something was a total pain in the ass back then.
Yeah. So through Transworld sponsoring events, I got invited to be a commentator, which I was so happy to do. That got me my start working in that arena. And through all that, I started getting work with Fuel TV. And I really started to focus more on that and doing more of my own thing in terms of hosting shows on our website. Towards the end of the magazine, I had made myself editor at large because I was really going full bore on doing stuff for Fuel TV, doing events for WSL, and working my way into any and every gig I could get either on TV or with a live stream vibe. I would do everything I could possibly do. And that's where I am now, trying to do everything I can do.
And with Fuel, you filled in on the Daily Habit, and then you did the Action Sports Plus show.
Yep.
One of the highlights there, and it's a story that I hear I have to get you to tell, is some hangover story that involved Kier Dillon. Care to share that one with us?
We've had many of those where we were so hungover trying to film the Action Sports Plus show, as well as the Daily Habit. I thought that I did my best work after 2 beers anyway, but when you're super hungover and you're trying to film a show that's live to tape, I mean, we would waste hours on laughing fits. You know, when you get manic when you're hungover
Yeah.
and you just can't stop laughing or can't stop crying. It was like that more than a few times. And our crew for Action Sports Plus, we would torture the production crew because we would sit there and laugh for an hour straight and hold everyone up. And it was awful and awesome at the same time.
Action Sports had a home on cable television, it felt like at that time. It wasn't just select ESPN programming, it was dedicated. What happens when it ends? Do you just get a phone call one day like, hey man, doors are shut, we're done?
It was more of a slow burn. Hey, we're only going to do this show once a week now. Or, hey, we're not filming the next couple of weeks, or reassessing, or, whatever the company jargon was. But then eventually it just turned into, yeah, we're not doing it anymore. From there, it was kind of like, okay, what now? How do we adapt? How do we parlay this into something else? And so that became trying harder to get more broadcast opportunities for surf, skate, snow, whatever I could get. And I think a lot of that stuff that was originally going to Fuel started going back to the magazines, back to websites, and then started to go heavily on YouTube, Vimeo. So that became the outlet for those shows. But we kept doing Coté's Cube, and we kept doing things like that, but you didn't have the big budget or the studio or the backing of an actual channel that made those shows work. It's funny now because when it did go out, it was kind of one of those, well, it happens. You don't really care until a couple of years later when you go, wow, I really miss watching drive-through when I'm at the bar. Or I really miss being able to turn on the TV and see a cool surf show. So people actually really ended up missing Fuel TV when it went off the air.
Speaking of missing things, Fuel TV goes away, but also you get the call and Transworld's bought by Grind Media. And when that happens, do you guys see the writing on the wall? You're the optimist. You're probably thinking maybe things will change for the better. I don't know. I'm putting words into your mouth. But what are you guys thinking in 2013 when you hear that Transworld Media is purchased? Is it, the end's near, or are you guys stoked?
I think we had all been through enough purchases and all that to know that either nothing was going to change or everything was going to change. So in this case, when we started to see different company guys come in, we're going, something's about to happen here. Other magazines started getting cut. So we got very protective. But at the same time, I had already kind of backed myself up with my plan A, making myself editor at large, kind of set me up already to be able to take that blow and already have been moving forward. But it was still heartbreaking, and it was still a big deal when they told us. When we got bought by Surfer Magazine, it was pretty clear. Everyone knew what was about to happen. So I think we were all ready for it to a certain extent, but we all kind of went into defense mode and banded together, and we were ready to fight anyone and everyone. But for me, I was very well taken care of by the company.
You'd been there forever.
I'd been there forever. I'd helped grow their business a lot since my time there. So they took really good care of me, and I always thank them for that, for sure. It was one of those things where I hung on. I kept doing stuff for Grind. At the same time, I was branching out into a lot more stuff for Vans, for WSL, for Red Bull. So I had myself pretty well set up to move forward.
So they didn't totally break ties with you. They broke ties with a lot of people, I'm sure, but you still worked with Grind a bit after they closed the magazine down?
Yeah, for about a year. And so I got severance. I got hooked up. I don't speak ill of them because they treated me so well. Some people got straight up laid off, and they got their severance, and it was see you later. And a lot of people got placed in different areas of Surfing Magazine or wherever. So I truly feel like they did a lot above and beyond to help the people, specifically from Transworld Surf. But yeah, some people probably feel like they got screwed over. I'm not one of those people. I definitely got hooked up.
You're one of the lucky ones.
Yeah, for sure.
And at your time in the magazine, when do you guys realize the threat of digital media is real? Like, hey, we're not number one. Because I dealt with a lot of magazines who pretty much would puff their chest out and be like, hey, if you're not advertising with us, you're not going to sell shit. And then the switch flipped at some point where they were like, hey, we'll sell you a big digital media package and we'll throw the ad in free because the print magazine didn't mean as much. When did you guys start seeing that trend happening?
I would say that it's probably 2011, 2012. And then by the end, the magazine almost became third behind Instagram, behind the website. The writing was definitely on the wall. I think we felt like we were crushing Surfer Magazine and Surfing Magazine at the time. So when it came time for them to choose, you're their dad, so you're going to choose your kids, not our baby.
Yeah. Was there a big difference in the subscriptions between the two mags?
Yeah, Surfer had definitely the biggest subscription base. I think we were right in there with Surfing, and we didn't really pay much attention to Surfer Magazine. Us and Surfing Magazine were definitely the competitors. Of course, we all respected each other a lot. We were all homies, but it was fun to battle them, to get scoops, to get the best surfers on trips and stuff like that. So we were just kind of like, well, why wouldn't you keep the website going? It was just kind of weird to just completely kill it and wipe it off the map. It was really sad because that was a huge part of my life and a huge part of the lives of all the people that put it together. It was a bummer, and people definitely took it hard.
Now it is time for my final set of sponsors, and I'm going to start with Spy Optic. Spy has spent the past 25 years innovating the sunglass game, but more importantly, they've spent 25 years making you look good. To celebrate this 25th anniversary, Spy is re-releasing the MC3, an ode to Jeremy McGrath's original MC sunglass. The new Dirty Mo 2 is a sick update to Dale Jr.'s original Dirty Mo, and the Scoop 2 celebrates Spy's OG Scoop sunglasses, which started it all. If you wear sunglasses and listen to this podcast, it's time to support me, save some money, and make yourself look good. What I want you to do is head on over to spyoptic.com, pick out some sunglasses, check out, and you are going to save 20% by entering the code POWEL20, that's all one word and the number 20, and you'll save 20% off. My final sponsor is the 10 Barrel Brewery out of Bend, Oregon. They have been brewing my favorite Northwest beer since 2006. And since they started brewing beer, they've been supporting the sports we love. If you aren't sure about what they've done in action sports, well, I'll tell you. They are the first beer brand to produce their own ski and snowboard movie. They support a team of A-list athletes. They throw a series of hella big air events. They have signature beers that donate to causes like Protect Our Winters. And they are supporting the big Proving Grounds Rampage qualifier in Bend this September. If all of that isn't cool enough, the people that work at 10 Barrel, they're all skiers, snowboarders, and bikers. And if you want to find out a lot more about the company and what goes on behind the scenes, well, they have their own podcast, Fully Aligned, and it's available wherever you get your podcasts, and it'll make you think a lot more about what you drink. Next time you head to the store, make sure you buy the beer that supports action sports. Pick up a 6-pack of 10 Barrel. Those are my sponsors, and now we will jump back into the podcast. The funny thing for you is that in 2003-ish, or whenever you start doing your webisode series and some of the digital projects you're doing, your side hustle is ultimately what's going to contribute to the death of your regular job. I mean,
exactly.
Focusing in digital media, it's pretty funny that you saw the foresight to make your personal career go that way, and the print career died.
Yeah, I helped killed it.
I think it's around that time that you get sober as well. Is that when that happens?
That is true.
Is that a hard thing to do? Because the candle's been lit on both ends for 20 years. How do you stop that? Do you go to meetings? Do you go to rehab? Do you do it yourself? How do you break that cycle?
So my friend Brandon Parkhurst from the band, he got sober after dealing with way heavier addiction issues than me. So I kind of noticed that, and I noticed how he changed for the better. And then the same thing happened with my dad. He got sober, and then I actually kind of was able to have a relationship with him. So it was a couple of things like that. And then for me personally, I just got into this bad cycle of drinking, getting too wild.
And you're married with kids at this point.
Married with kids, and it was definitely affecting my marriage. It was affecting my relationship with my kids. They were starting to notice. There was a couple big bender moments, but for the most part, in our industry, it's very accepted to, you go to lunch, you have a couple beers. After work, you go to happy hour. Every meeting is about drinking. Every function, every party is everything. It's always about drinking. So there was no stigma to it, like as if I was in real estate or whatever. I'm sure every industry has its ties to it, but especially in our industry, not a lot of people are going to tell you that you have a problem or you need to slow down because everybody's in the same boat.
And you're part of the Just Say Yes crew. If someone wants to go to happy hour or wants to have beers at lunch and you weren't planning on it, if they order one, you're going to order one too, right?
Oh, yeah. And I'm going to order 5 after that, and I spend enough time with the Irons brothers and that kind of crew. So I had a different crew for every occasion, every time of the day. I had my day drinking friends, my night drinking friends, my late night friends that we got really weird with. So everywhere I went, no matter what time, there was always somebody ready to go. And when you travel a lot, that comes with the area as well, just because you go to places where other people go on vacation. So you're often in these parts of the world where people are just so ready to party.
And they're excited to see you. You get in town and they want to buy you a drink and take you out and show you everything.
Yep. So my cycle towards the end became wake up feeling crappy from the day before, but then you go to lunch, have a couple beers, and then you're real tired, so take an Adderall in the afternoon to get through the work. And then you're all jumpy, so you go to happy hour, have a couple beers after work, and then at night I'm just going to have a couple glasses of wine, so you drink a half a bottle of wine. By the end of the day, before you go to bed, 8 beers and half a bottle of wine. So
that's a lot of alcohol.
That was an everyday thing. I had been asked by my mom, my ex-wife, just, hey, you're not here. You're not present. You're constantly buzzed. And I was basically buzzed for 5 years straight, every day, all day, whether it's off 1 or 2 beers or 8 beers, so it was just this constant cycle. And I had the propensity to always be the most wasted, messed up, quote, funniest guy at the event.
You sound like you're one speed. Like once you start drinking, they're just going to be thrown back until you're not standing.
Yeah, and that's the classic cliche of most addicts is our dream would be to go out and have a beer or 2 and then go, cool, all right, that's it. See you later. But I can't do that. I never have been able to do that. So that's kind of when I had this visualization of myself. I was at this bachelor party. I was on everything you could be on. And at a certain point in the night, I kind of looked in the mirror and I go, whoa, dude, you're a dad and you're this messed up. Like, what are you doing?
You must feel like a piece of shit at some point.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So the next day I could barely walk. I was unintelligible, couldn't really speak. I was so hungover. My son said, oh, Dad, are you sick? And he looked at me really lovingly. And I just kind of looked at him like, yeah, I'm sick. And that's when I go, okay, I got to stop drinking. So I told myself, I go, I'm not drinking for 2 months. And then 2 days later, I went to happy hour and got wasted. Then I got to the point where I go, okay, I want this. I don't want to feel like this anymore. I want to be out of this cycle.
Do you feel like just a loser at that point? Like you can't make yourself stop?
I felt like it was out of my control.
Okay.
And with drinking, of course, it's smoking cigs, it's doing other things. Putting yourself in situations and in places and with people that if you were sober in your right mind, you go, I would never be here with these people.
But you just say yes.
Yes. And so I told myself I wasn't going to do it again. Then I did it again. Then I thought, okay, we got to address this. So I started leaning heavily on some of my friends, my dad. I went to some meetings and little things like always having soda water nearby. Always feeling like I had someone to talk to if I was feeling like I needed a drink. But for the most part, it was just, I knew for myself that I needed to do this to change. It didn't save my marriage, but it saved my sanity. And it was hard. A year of detoxing, a year of wondering, well, when am I going to feel good?
Wow.
That's what a lot of people ask. Oh, wow, you must have felt so good. I hate to answer, but I have to be honest. And I say, it takes a long time because you beat yourself up for 20 years. It's going to take a while to repair yourself. Not that I went on some health kick. I just didn't drink. And eventually it got easier. I kept going out. I kept going to shows. I kept going to bars. I kept being with the same people. So it wasn't like I cut a lot of people out of my life. Your relationships change with certain friends for sure. And I've opened myself up on Instagram to anyone who wants to ask me about it. a lot of the people, I tell the same thing. No one else can tell you it's time. You have to know it's time for yourself. That's the only way it's going to happen. So I just knew it was time. And it's a challenge sometimes because after 5 years now.
Congratulations on that, because that's a big accomplishment.
Oh, thank you. After 5 years of not drinking, then different thoughts creep in your mind. Well, maybe I healed myself and now I could go out and have a glass of wine. But I know myself and I know that I could do that today, probably for the next couple of months. But inevitably, it would be 2 glasses, 3, 4 down the line. Then I'm back to where I started.
I bet you'd be back to where you started within a month.
Yeah, absolutely. The first 5 or 6 months that I would stop drinking, I go, well, I'm 3 months in. Something either really bad or really good has to happen for me to want to drink again. And I kept telling myself that over and over for some reason. But all these good things and all these really bad things happened, and I still didn't, because I just knew going through a divorce or getting an epic job opportunity, the highs and lows. And it was definitely a process to walk into these things, because for me, the answer to everything, I mean, like stub my toe, I better have a beer because that'll make me feel better. Or get a raise, let's go get a nice bottle of wine. Any excuse became a reason. Oh, it's 4:00 on a Tuesday. It's time for beer. You can quantify any excuse, any reason to drink or not to. And for me, I see how much better my life is, how much clearer my mind is, how much better I feel. And I look at pictures of myself in my heyday of alcoholism and I'm a turd. Always sweaty and a double chin.
When you see the footage of you in riding a van with boys, it's one of those things where it's probably a little funny, but really embarrassing at the same time.
Yeah, there's a lot of elements of it where I'm very proud of it and I would never take anything back. But then there is some guilt attached to something like riding in vans with the boys because, yes, it was the best time ever and I would never take any of it back. And through Transworld, these are things that helped illuminate the party lifestyle. And it's so fun. It's cool to be a derelict. And that happens in skateboarding and everything. But I definitely played a part in that for a lot of young people, I'm sure. So that's why I politely spread the gospel of non-drinking, just because I definitely did my work in helping to make it look cool or make it look fun and celebrate it.
I still do that, unfortunately, but whatever, to each his own. I'm proud of you that you're able to quit because that's a tough thing to do altogether. And when you did, you're really able to make your business life flourish. There's so many things that you do, like you say, it's like your ADD. You didn't say this, but I'll say this. It's like your ADD with so many different things. You're a brand consultant. What does that mean? Do brands come to you with ideas or marketing plans and have you look them over, or do they want you to make their own plans? What does your consulting consist of?
It's been everything from brand development to social media direction to even going as day-to-day social media posting.
You get paid to post for other people?
Yeah, for a while now. A couple of different companies, helping companies figure out which kid to sponsor and what are they worth, and trying to be a bridge between smaller companies that are trying to break into action sports market or whatever, and helping with tourism boards using the knowledge I've acquired through all these years.
It's expertise. Through all that partying and all those jobs, you became an expert in a field, and people want you for that.
Yes. And sometimes I get paid for it, but a lot of times you'll be in a meeting and you'll just get on a roll and you'll break something down to a person or a company, and then you'll leave the meeting and go, wow, I should have charged them for that. That was good stuff.
Yeah. On top of that, Encinitas Magazine, do you still do that? Are you the editor-in-chief there?
I do, yeah. That's a bi-monthly magazine, and it's basically all ex-Transworld people, from our photo editor, graphic artist, art director. There's 4 or 5 of us, and it's definitely a labor of love. None of us really make not a lot, if any, money off of it. But for me, I absolutely love Encinitas. It's a hometown kind of give back, I guess, to this town that I feel like has given me everything. And it is gratifying to still, because I came from a print background. I came from loving magazines and poring over every page. So it's really nice to be able to do a print magazine. We get really incredible feedback, but that is a really fun outlet. And it is stressful sometimes when all the different jobs kind of come together at the same time, which unfortunately happens more than I'd like it to. But I was at the US Open this year, for example, in between heats, I was on my phone trying to finish captions for the magazine, trying to finish that thing on my breaks in between calling the action. So those things can get kind of wild sometimes.
You put yourself in that position by doing so many things because your bread and butter should be calling events. I mean, I think that's what you do best. You have a podcast as well. That's great. But that's probably where your passion is too, calling live events and being seen doing that.
For sure. And I thoroughly enjoy it. I love it. And to be able to now do it in surf, skate, and snow is awesome because the skate is so fast. And, I'm working with Tony Hawk, and it's just this family that we have on the Vans Park series that is super rad. I've done Dew Tour for skate and snow. And every time there's that little bit of nerves, you want to kill it every broadcast. And for surf broadcasts, every time I do it, I try to learn, I try to get better. I try to, I don't want to say be the perfect commentator, but I try to have fun, and I try to bridge the gap between super hardcore and never even seen surfing before. And that makes it a fun challenge. And I get something different from every different kind of sport or broadcast. And then they all help each other. And that's the whole reason I even started the Monday Mash podcast, because I just want to keep the tools sharp and keep working on talking about this stuff to get better through practice, through heavy repetition of talking about freaking surfing and skating and snowboarding and now nerd news. It's just blabbing all day long about this crap.
What is the dumbest thing that you have said on live TV or a webcast? What's the biggest foot in your mouth moment you've had?
Oh gosh, there's been so many. Calling people the wrong names or mispronouncing or whatever. But I remember I was commentating a heat with Kelly Slater at Cloudbreak, and it was just absolutely firing. The best wave he got of this whole contest. He dropped in, he got this crazy barrel. And I remember clearly because they showed this wave over and over for about a year after I say something like, Kelly Slater comes out of the barrel, he goes up, and then he goes down, and he goes back up. Like, I don't even know what I was saying. And it was just the dumbest call. And of course, that was the best wave probably of the year. So it just got replayed over and over. It stays with you. And so it's a fun challenge. I definitely listen to other broadcasts, NFL, baseball, golf, whatever. I try to listen to as many different broadcast commentators as possible. And it's so gratifying when you hear them mess up because oh, well, if these guys are messing up, the best in the world are messing up, then I can mess up every once in a while too. But you mess up and you just move on.
If you think about something while you're supposed to be talking about something else, it really messes you up. So you just got to move forward.
Yeah. My favorite thing is this has happened a lot, specifically at events like the Vulcan Pipe Pro or Triple Crown, when somebody thinks it's very easy to go in there and do this, and then they come and do it. You go, okay, well, come in the booth and put a headset on and let's go. And they come in and they freeze and they totally blow it. And then you see them later and they go, hey, wow, you're really good at what you do. That is really hard. Stuff like that feels really good because, it can be hard.
When someone's in your ear talking while you're talking in a live production, yeah, it gets confusing. And if you've never done it, it is a stressful moment.
Yeah, it really trips people out the first couple of times. For me, it's now second nature. I get to work with a lot of different directors, different producers, different people in my ear, and different crews. So it's cool to be able to kind of try to take from every different group that you work with and learn something and apply it to just get better. I pride myself on being easy to work with behind the scenes. I'll do extra social media stuff. I'll do extra voiceovers. I'll do whatever. I want to be the ultimate team player. I want everybody to thrive. I feel like if I can raise everybody else's game up, then I've done my job to my best potential.
All right. Well, at this point in the show, we're going to go into something I call inappropriate questions.
Oh, yes. Been waiting for this.
And I didn't get someone to ask you the questions. I'll apologize for that now. I tried to get Todd, but he never got back to me.
What a dick.
Yeah, it's all right.
I did it for him.
I know, and you did it within an hour's notice, but that didn't happen. I did have some other inappropriate questions that were coming to Todd that I got later. And one of them I'll just throw out here now because we're bashing Todd for a second.
Okay.
Does Todd feel strange that he was able to have a pro snowboard career and never hit a big jump?
I've snowboarded with him a bunch, and he's very low key when he's around me, but then I'll see him flare up sometimes and just throw a backflip. I got to go back to the tape because I think you're right. I've only seen him riding 3-foot half pipes and doing jibs. So maybe he's not as good as I thought he was.
Well, that wasn't my question. I will credit that to a friend named Johan.
Johan's right. Wow, Todd sucks.
Now we will go to the first inappropriate question for you. There's a scene in the movie where you get branded by Billy Joe from Green Day, and it's a horrific scene of a pool cue being heated up by like 10 lighters. It was savage shit. And I'm guessing that you've done some other really dumb shit like that when partying and when not partying. I mean, you're the guy who fucked a sea anemone when you were 10 years old.
Right.
So anything come to mind of something that you've done that people would consider just not right?
I guess going above and beyond the kind of silliness and the self-injury. I remember one time I was in the desert with my friends and they were sleeping in the back of my truck. And I jumped in the truck and started doing donuts. And I almost flipped the truck. See, I should have quit drinking right there that day because I could have killed those guys. Luckily, nothing bad happened. But that kind of stuff happens all the time. And that was just one of those things where you just wake up and you're going, dude, like I'll injure myself and make myself throw up or do disgusting things. But when I affect someone else is when I feel really bad. Yeah, I mean, I passed out on stage at a Modest Mouse show. I'm looking around my office right now. I'm looking at like flyers and posters and stuff. And there's been multiple shows with Cut You Up where I've just been so blown that I couldn't even barely stand or talk into the microphone, which I think is common for bands. You know, just the usual things where you somehow survive these dumb drunken moments. The next morning you go, oh my God, I will never do that again. And then inevitably 3 nights later, you do the exact same thing.
Did you have many mornings where you woke up and it wasn't just like, I will never do that again? It's like you were embarrassed for your actions?
Oh, for sure. I mean, my heaviest partying was done in front of a camera.
It was awesome, man. It was great.
But thank God we didn't have Instagram and all that. You know, we had pagers and flip phones, which the video quality wasn't that good. So we didn't have as much opportunity to be captured on video doing all this stupid stuff. We just did stupid stuff and it became kind of local lore.
All right. Well, now I'll go to question 2. A dude like yourself who's lived a pretty hard life for a long time have usually had run-ins with the law. Have you ever been arrested or have a great evading arrest story?
Yeah, I was on tour. It was when I was a roadie. It was with Unwritten Law, Blink, and a couple other bands. The drummer of Unwritten Law, this dude Wade, is just a maniac. And I was attracted to hanging out with him because we shared that lust for life, let's call it. So we were in Jacksonville, Florida. I don't believe the police in Jacksonville are known for leniency or friendliness, but again, I've only been there once. So we jumped the fence and climbed this huge crane, you know, one of those giant construction cranes.
Yep.
All the way up, all the way out to the end. And I think we were dropping stuff off of it maybe. And as we started coming back down, we noticed the security guard is running across the ground underneath us. And we go, okay, he is a criminal mastermind because he's probably been arrested 20 plus times or something. So as we're climbing down, he's going, okay, here's the story. We were looking for a lost girl who said she was going to climb this crane and jump off. So everybody gets that same story, lock it in. All right, we'll get to the bottom, split up. We get to the bottom. We jump the fence back in the street. Him and I immediately arrested, thrown in the back of a car for a felony charge of trespassing.
Oh.
And our other friend got arrested on the other side. And so he starts going into full Meryl Streep acting mode. He's crying. This girl, she's in a white shirt and jeans, and she was crying. I don't know what happened. She said she was going to climb this thing. So we went to look for her, and the cop was like, all right, great story. We'll see if your friend tells the same one. And luckily, our friend did. And so we got off.
Whoa.
It was crazy. I mean, it was heavy. We were fully going down. We almost ruined the tour because they would have had to bail us out or whatever. Other than walking around with drugs or whatever, I never harmed other people per se. So I never got in that kind of trouble.
Okay.
I never was in like fights. Some slight vandalism as a youngster and just doing stupid shit while drunk.
You just party harder than everybody else.
You know, I tried to set the bar. Some people far exceeded me. There's always someone partying harder.
I'm going to go with my final inappropriate question, which probably goes well with there's always someone partying harder. What's the most rock star thing you've ever seen in your life?
I mean, the classic that's in Riding in Vans, Billy Joe from Green Day swinging on the chandelier and having it break out of the ceiling. And he got straight up and it was all wrapped around him. And he just walked out of the room and back down the hall to his room. I mean, that was kind of the most cliche pinnacle rock star moment of destruction.
And when that guy burnt you, because he's the one who branded you,
yeah,
it seemed like he was almost bullying you. You didn't want to do it. You said a couple times, no. And then finally, peer pressure took over. You said yes, and you weren't really stoked to get it done. But wasn't he supposed to get your name tattooed on him? And has that ever happened?
He was supposed to get my name tattooed on him. He got sober too, and he hasn't talked to me since he stopped drinking and stuff. So, yeah, I got to hit him up and get that done. You know, it's one of those things. I was a willing participant, but I didn't know to which extent it was actually going to burn. So when it actually burned that bad, I was pretty shocked. I took really good care of the scar because I wanted to stay on tour. I didn't want to get infected and gangrene or something. So I don't really have that much of a scar at all. And the only thing I would do differently to go back is scratch at it, maybe pick the scabs a little bit and make sure it's a better scar.
I think you should go rekindle your friendship with Billy Joe by getting burnt again and him following through on his word, because you're only as good as your word, and you took a lot of pain there, and he did not get your name tattooed on him. It makes me think of him differently.
Well, hopefully he's a fan of your podcast, and he'll be listening right now feeling guilty and go straight to the tattoo parlor and get my name on his butt or something.
That would be awesome. Those are inappropriate questions. Looking at your career, you were a mid-level surfer. You got to go on photo shoots and video shoots, and you realized that you weren't going to be a big-time pro surfer, and you made shit happen for yourself. And through all the partying and all the different shit you were doing, your resume is fucking ridiculous. So while maybe it would be called a functional alcoholic because you were more than highly functional in getting shit done, but still being able to party all through the night, and you've been able to save your life as well. So thank you for your time. It's been cool to hear your story.
Wow, it sounds really cool when you say it like that. Thank you so much.
So that was time with Chris Coté, and that dude sure has lived. He knows what it's like to be a rock star, he knows what it's like to be a professional surfer, and he finds himself shining on a weekly basis on the internet or television. You take that, mix in a whole bunch of heavy partying, and you have the recipe for a dude who has done it all. And when things turned to their lowest, he was a dude smart enough to get himself better, and that's not an easy thing to do. Through it all, Chris seems to have remained a kind-hearted, good dude, and it was a pleasure having him on the show. That's the podcast for this week. I want to thank you for listening, ask you to review me on whatever platform you listen to me on, and support my great sponsors. They are Evo, Stanley, Spy Optic, and the 10 Barrel Brewery. Have a great week, everyone.